All right. Thanks, Fernanda, for starting the recording. All right, I'm going to share my screen. We just have a few announcements. We are very excited to celebrate National Biomechanics Day with you all. And I'm going to start out with NBD had a Women in Biomechanics outreach. We kind of promoted it, and we have these winners here. I don't know, are any of the winners on the call? I'm not sure if they are, but congratulations to all of them. I don't know, Paul, if you'd like to say a few words, but.
We had this year, like last year, we had many great submissions, and it was a little sad that we couldn't fund more of them, but we expanded this year a little bit to some other groups, but we were happy to fund, I think about 8 or 9 of them, or is there 9 here? We funded 9 grants, so pretty happy.
That is awesome. Thank you so much to the Biomechanics Initiative and Paul DeVita for his support of women in biomechanics always. And yeah, I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much again for celebrating the next hour with us.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to, I think Rachel's on the call. We are planning a special, or they're planning a special session with World Congress of Biomechanics. So Rachel, do you want to share a little bit?
Yes, of course. So we are planning to have a session at the World Congress of Biomechanics this summer, and it's going to focus on mentorship. And so we are looking for nominations of women in biomechanics who are excellent mentors. So if you know of one, if you know of many, feel free to either follow the link that's in that bottom right corner, or go to the QR code. And it's a really short form where you can nominate a woman and speak a little bit about why she's such an excellent mentor. And self-nominations are also welcome. And then I want to emphasize that we're really looking for women from all around the world, but also from all types of career stages. So I think as a grad student, I often don't view myself as a mentor, but all of us students also have mentorship roles. And so, we're looking for people from all around the world, from all career stages, and from all areas in biomechanics. And we're looking to have people submit these in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, we look forward to seeing a bunch of awesome women nominated to be a part of this event. And because it's looking like this will probably be virtual, there's no need to pretty much anyone should be able to at least don't limit your nominations to people who might be going to World Congress, because it's looking like this is going to be virtual, so anyone from around the world could participate. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel and team, for planning this event. We're so excited for IWB to be represented. Maybe Rachel could also post the link to the form in the chat. That would be great. And we'll post it on Slack and other places as well. All right, just another reminder, we have great content on our blog. Thank you so much to Alexa for organizing, and Katie as well. And yeah, just a reminder, we've got a new blog from Abby on the guide to science communication. So keep up on our website. And then I just want a quick reminder about our next meeting. Our May meeting is going to be sharing some of the organizational future of IWB. We were very grateful to get a new grant. Basically, ASB has a new program, Grants for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So we are one of 3 winners with Black Biomechanics Association and Latinx in Biomechanics. So we are very excited to share with you what we have proposed to do with the money, and we'd love your input. So please, please attend when you get that announcement. And then the theme of this, this meeting is Parents in Science. And so we just wanted to mention a few. I'm sure there's many more, but a couple support mechanisms for biomechanics moms. We have a kids parenting Slack channel. So if you need a reminder of the Slack link, I'll post it in the chat, but please join the kids parenting Slack channel. That's just for our women in biomechanics. You can private DM people and post anonymously and so on. So feel free to use that space to get support. And then I know one of our active members, Dr. Ina Jansen, is very involved with organizing Mother's Cafe through ISBS. So look out for announcements on that. And if you have other ideas for supporting moms in biomechanics, please post them in the chat. And with that, I'm so thrilled to announce our guest speaker for today. Dr. Fernanda Staniscuaski is a Brazilian biologist. She has a PhD in molecular biology and biotechnology. She's currently an associate professor in Brazil, and she founded the Parent in Science movement, which is aimed at supporting researchers in the challenging conciliation of motherhood and academia, as well as promoting public policies to increase the participation and retention of women in STEM. So thank you so much, Fernanda, for joining us, and I'll stop sharing my screen. So I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the invitation and having me here with you today. I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see if it works. And we put on full screen. So thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk about our movement and what we have done here in Brazil. And before I get into details about the parenting science movement, I just want to bring a little bit of context about the Brazilian situation when we are talking about women in science. So I'm pretty sure you are really familiar with this representation of the leaky pipeline, where at the beginning of our careers, we have more than half of the bachelor and master graduates being female, but when we move along, the academic ladder, we have less than 50% of the PhD graduates being female, and worldwide, we have less than 30% of the researchers being female. So here in Brazil, it's not different. So we have here the data about the Brazilian scenario, and it's the same thing here. We have now today 57% of our undergrad students, they are women, and 53% of the grad students here in Brazil are women. But when we move along on the academic career, we start losing these women, and it gets really bad to the point where we have never had a female president of the main funding agency we have here in Brazil. And last week, this last scenario changed because after 105 years, we have the first female president of the Brazilian Academy of Science. So that changed recently, but still the first one after 100 years of the history of the society, the academy. So it's a huge problem, and it's not an easy problem to solve because we are not talking about one cause, one problem. We're talking about many barriers that women face when we are moving along within our careers. So when we are talking about women in science, we need to talk about gender stereotypes. We need to talk about harassment. That is a big issue in our institutions, and it does have a huge impact on women staying within the system. And we also need to talk about parenthood, more specifically motherhood, because we know that being a mom is one of the barriers because our system is not prepared to receive moms in the academia and science. So I want to talk a little bit more about my journey because the history of the parenting science movement is really linked to my personal journey. So as Anna said, I'm a biologist by training. I have a PhD in cellular and molecular biology. I spent a few years in Canada as a postdoc in the University of Toronto. And when I came back in 2010, I was hired as a professor here at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, one of the biggest universities we have here in Brazil. And in 2013, I had my first son, and today I'm mom of 3 young boys. My youngest is a little over 3 years right now. So it's really important for me to talk about me being a mom because the things I lived and I heard in academia, they changed everything. And they were the reasons why we started the parenting science movement. So when I had my first child, I was newly hired at the university, and immediately people start questioning me why I was having a child at that point in my career. Why could I have waited longer so I would be more stable in my career and everything? And it was really sad because, first of all, we should not be telling people when they should have children. And also because it made really clear for me that the system, the academic and the scientific system, they are not welcoming to mothers, because any deviation of that really career path that we are taught to be the ideal, people do not accept that. So it started to get really hard for me to hear these things. Here in Brazil, we have 6 months of paid maternity leave. So I have huge breaks in my career. And it was really frustrating too, because during these breaks, during my leaves, people were emailing me and asking, oh, why couldn't I reply to emails, or why couldn't I be writing a grant or a paper or whatever. And it's really bad because first of all, I should not be pressured or guilted into working during my leave. But even if I wanted it, that's not how it works. You cannot work with a little baby at home, or in my case, with a little baby and then 2 toddlers at home. So that does not work like that, because we are not on vacation. So I started to talk about it, how I was feeling about all this scenario, and it was really weird because a lot of people started replying to me, or a lot of women started replying to me saying there is no such a thing as career factor of motherhood, because they made it without any special help. Why couldn't I? If I wasn't able to do so, because I wasn't trying hard enough. It was really, really sad, because I've devoted all my life to science until the point I became a mom. And when I needed some flexibility, some understanding that I was in a pause in my career, the answer that I got, it was that I should separate my personal life from my professional life. And if I wasn't able to do so, maybe I wasn't fit for science or for academic career. So I got really frustrated, and I started writing about it on social media and everything, how I thought it was really unfair all I was going through. And it was really nice, because a lot of women started replying and saying they were going through the same thing, that we have this feeling that we will only be able to resume our careers after the kids got older. We do not have the same time we used to have to work at home. And our CVs, they do have huge gaps. And we cannot fill these gaps with the birth certificates of the kids. So we start talking about it, and we decided that, okay, the system is telling us we are not fit for the system, but instead of leaving, we decided to change the system. And that's how the Parenting Science movement was created in 2016. We started as a really small group. We were 7 scientists, 6 moms and 1 dad, here from the south of Brazil, where I live. And we decided we were going to do something. We didn't know what we were going to do and what was going to happen, but we decided something needed to be done. And it was really nice to see that after 5 years of our movement being created, we have changed a lot of things here in Brazil, and we have grown a lot. So from this small group of 7 scientists, the Parenting Science movement today is a group of 90 scientists from around the country. We are organizing pods. So we have the central pod, that is this group that's here, that coordinates the movement with me. And we also have our regional pods with our ambassadors, and I'll tell a little bit more about it later. So that's how the Parenting Science was created, and we had the mission that we wanted to change how motherhood was perceived within academia to create a more fair environment for everybody, including moms. So we decided, we started to promote these discussions about the impacts of motherhood in the academic career of scientists, and also to encourage the development of support policies that were aimed at mother scientists. And also one really big important thing for us here to talk about the intersections. When we are talking about gender and motherhood, there are many other factors that influence also the progression of women within the academic system. Here in Brazil, we have more than 50% of our population being Black. But when we look at universities, we have less than 16% of the professors at the universities being Black. And when we look at the graduate professors, we have less than 3% of the professors being Black female scientists. So it's a huge problem. Those numbers that I showed you in the beginning, they are general numbers. So if we do this analysis, taking into consideration race, the numbers are quite low. So it's always important for us to bring this discussion. When we're talking about motherhood, we cannot talk about it, especially here in Brazil, without bringing race and all the other intersections we know there is with gender. So we have several goals. We need, if we want change, we need the entire academic community to come together. And to do so, they need to be aware that we are talking about a structural problem. I'm not talking about me not being able to keep up with my career as a mom or being a good mom as a scientist. We're talking about structural issues. So we need to be constantly bringing up this discussion, because people tend to isolate the effect and say, oh no, it's just you, that doesn't not happen. So bringing this awareness and talking about it, it's been really important for us to change things here. Also, when we started the movement in 2016, we didn't have any data to work on. So we decided we would analyze more deeply what's the problem, what happens with productivity, with career progression when we become mothers or fathers. So we decided to deeply analyze the situation. So we could build this theoretical, but also this database that could serve as reference for the development of support policies. If we want that our support policies to be effective, they need to be based on data. So for the last 5 years, we've been working hard on generating data about parenthood, about women in science, and so on here in Brazil. We need to, a really big work that we need to do here, and I'm pretty sure it's not only in Brazil, is to fight bias and prejudice. So we receive constantly reports about mothers being discriminated or being judged within academia and everything. So we are raising the discussion to talking about implicit bias, a lot of prejudice we have with mothers within academia. And in the end, what we want is to build a really strong network that will be able to promote change everywhere. Not only here in Brazil, we have some collaborators outside. So what are we doing to reach our goals? So since 2018, we do every year a Brazilian Symposium on Motherhood and Science. It's a really important moment for us because we can bring people together to discuss what's going on, what's happening. So the first symposium in 2018 was a really landmark for us because we were able to organize a lot of our demands. What do you want, or did we want to do? And it's really exciting to look at it and see that just a few years after, we were able to achieve a lot of our goals that were set during the symposium. So we are holding it annually. Last year was virtual because of the pandemic and everything. So it's a really important moment for us. And about awareness, here in Brazil, we have what's called the Lattes platform. So all the Brazilian scientists, they have their CVs registered on the Lattes platform. It's a really huge platform. We have now over 7 million CVs registered there, and it's run by one of our federal funding agencies. So what was always happening is that when people were looking at our CVs, we have those gaps in there and people just assume something happened, but nobody knew what happened. So we wanted to take motherhood out of invisibility and say, okay, I have this gap in my CV. It was because I had a child at that period of time. So we started this campaign of the maternity in Lattes, maternidade no Lattes. We have our shirts with our kids' names on and everything. It was really important because it was the first time. This was in 2018 too. It was the first time that the whole community came together to start to discuss it and supporting us in this demand. So in July of 2018, we delivered this letter that was signed by several Brazilian scientific societies, including the Brazilian Academy of Sciences, demanding that a change was made in the Lattes platform to include a specific field where we could inform our maternity leave periods. So it was not easy. It took 3 years, but as of April 15 in 2021, the Lattes platform was changed. And now we have a leave field, and there we can put on you can see here the 3 periods of time where I was on maternity leave. This was really important for us, not only because we finally took motherhood out of invisibility, but it also because it had a practical impact. So right now, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail later, but there are a lot of institutions that adopt guidelines that include motherhood when they are looking at CVs. So it was really important for us. As I mentioned before, when we started the movement, we didn't have any data to work on here in Brazil. So we decided to do a national survey, and we were able to get a good response from women, not so good from men. So that was the first issue we had. We have over 2,000 respondents. There were moms, but only 300. There were fathers. So it was a problem we had, but we were able to generate data and show that when women have their child, they suffer from a really sharp drop in productivity, and we are talking about publication records. And of course, this impacts their competitiveness because we didn't see anything like that when we look at the father CVs or the women without child CVs. So it was really important for us to have this data because it was used to implement a lot of the policies that are implemented already here in Brazil. So based in these findings, a lot of our funding agencies in universities is starting to include motherhood when they are preparing the guidelines for CV analysis, for grants or fellowships applications, for selection processes in our grad courses, for example, and in hiring and progression processes in our university. So usually what is done is to increase the years span that the CV is analyzed. Here in Brazil, usually you look at what the scientist has produced in these last 5 years. So for when the scientist had a child, we will look at 7 years. So it kind of compensates a drop we know will happen. Or some universities, because we have quantitative data now, they are adopting a correction factor to equalize the assessment of mothers' productivity when they are analyzing CVs. So it's really, really nice for us to be able to implement effective policies using our data here in Brazil. It's not general yet. It's not all the universities or all the funding agencies that are adopting these rules, but we are trying to get more of those institutions engaging in this change. So, but it's been positive so far. We cannot talk about it, the mothers in science, without talking about the pandemic. And there was another area where we were able to contribute a little bit here in Brazil. So in May of 2020, when we were in the midst of this social isolation and all daycares, schools closed and everything, we were really worried about the impact for academic mothers, what was going to happen with their careers and everything. So we published this letter on Science, bringing up this discussion. And we also had done a survey here in Brazil. This survey was answered for over 14,000, answered by over 14,000 scientists here in Brazil, from grad students, postdocs, professors, researchers, and everything. So I'm not going to get into detail about the data. You can access our publications and everything, but it was really clear that the pandemic was impacting everybody, but not in the same way. So we were able to show that women were submitting less articles or less papers at that point, and also that parenthood had an effect, especially for moms, not that much for dads. And also we show that race was another factor that was influence productivity. We have data here in Brazil showing that women in general, they have smaller networks within academia and science. And that is even smaller when we're talking about Black female scientists. So who was able to keep up producing and doing everything during the pandemic? Those that had huge networks. And that's not the case for Black women, even those that are not mothers. So we were able to put data on numbers on that and showing that other than gender and parenthood, race was also an important factor when we are looking at the pandemic impacts on academia and science. So we were able to suggest a lot of actions that should have been implemented at the time, and we hope will be implemented in the future to fight the setbacks for caregivers, not only mothers, during the pandemic. And when we look at the data from the survey, one of the most impacted data we had was that for grad students, there were mothers, less than 10% of them said that they were able to keep up with their thesis or dissertations during the period of the social isolation. Of course, there's a lot of reasons for that, but also here in Brazil, women were the ones that suffered the hardest economical hit. A lot of people lost their jobs. We have a lot of cuts in our fellowships here in Brazil and everything. So we didn't want that the financial situation imposed by the pandemic be the reason for these women to leave their PhD or master courses. So we decided to do something, but we never had any money for the Parenting Science program. We decided to do a crowdfunding, and it was really interesting to see how strong our network was, because a little over a month, we were able to raise over 120,000 Brazilian reais. So we were able to implement this, what you call the Tomorrow program. And with this money, we assisted during the year of 2021, 29 mothers, they are grad students, so they could finish their PhD or master's courses during the pandemic. Most of those women, they were Black or indigenous women, and most of them also, they were solo mothers. So it was really, really nice for us to be able to take what we were discussing and put it into action, and actually made a contribution to our system here in Brazil. We are really excited because we are expanding a lot during this period of time, this short life of the Parenting Science movement. I already mentioned that we have our ambassadors program, and it was really, really important for us because Brazil is a huge country. And we do have a lot of differences when we are talking about living here on the south, where I live, or being on the north, on the Amazon and everything. So with the ambassadors programs, we are in all Brazilian regions. We are not in all states, but almost all states of the country. And then these ambassadors, they are working on local working groups, and they were able to produce institutional changes that make sense for them. Because not everything is the same when we're talking about different institutions, and if we are talking about private institutions, federal institutions, and so on. So it was a really important step for us because we were able to reach the entire country and actually promote more effective changes because they are made for their context. So we are really lucky to have we have now 72 ambassadors around the country. But we are also expanding outside the Brazilian borders. So for us, it's really, it's important to have a Latin American network because we do have a lot of similarities and things that we share. So we are already in Colombia. There is a Parenting Science Colombia so far. They are right now reproducing our first survey. So they are generating data to understand their context and what is the situation of women in science in Colombia. We are talking with people from other countries in Latin America. So in the near future, we might have another chapters of the Parenting Science being established around Latin America. We are always talking about the impact of motherhood in the academic career, but we know that when we are talking about motherhood, we are talking about a problem that is not just for the academy or the scientific environment. So we are trying to reach out of our environment within the academia. So we are having a lot of coverage in the media lately, so also in the scientific media. So our data on the COVID impact, but also the data we have before, it has been featured in a lot of pieces in Nature, Science, and so on. But we are also talking to mainstream media here in Brazil because it's important to engage people outside academia in this fight. So we have a lot of attention for us, especially after the award that I'm going to talk a little bit later. But the change in the Lattes platform was really big here in Brazil. So we got a lot of attention regarding that. We were in some of our TV shows and interviews. There is a documentary about us. It's in Portuguese only, but I can forward you the link anyway. Maybe Google has YouTube has the translation too. It might work. I'm not sure if how good that is. We also expanding our outreach program because, as I said, we need to talk to the general public to promote more changes that are more sustainable at long time, and also to when we are talking about mothers, we need to inspire girls that intend to be mothers, that showing that it is a possible career to be a mom, to be a scientist and everything. So we have a fellow, Beatriz, that is taking care of our outreach program. We are doing some workshops for girls in science. It's been really nice. The last one in person was in 2020, but it's been a really interesting experience for us to start all this outreach program. We have a newsletter. It's in Portuguese and Spanish only, sorry. But so far we have close to 1,000 subscribers in Brazil and Latin America. And it's a really nice opportunity for us to talk about what is going on, what we are doing, but also to get some feedback of things people will think will be interesting to talk about it, and actions and events and everything. So it's been really nice to have this. And this is the team that does our monthly newsletter. But other than numbers, it's been really nice. And I cannot put on words how I feel every time I read this, because we get a lot of testimonials of people talking about how we have changed a little bit, how they felt. Because as I said in the beginning, the academic environment, the scientific environment, they are not really welcoming to mothers. And we tend to think that it's just us. It's my problem. I am the one that is not able to do so. So when we raised this discussion and we showed it's a structural problem, it's not just you, people always talk about how that made a difference for them. So it's really, really, really nice for us to receive this kind of feedback about bringing this kind of comfort to people, because I didn't have that when I became a mom, and it was really hard and almost made me give up on science, something that I never considered before. And also we are inspiring other groups to work on this the subjects about motherhood and women in science. So here's the Federal University of the Fluminense Federal University. It's one of the main universities in Rio de Janeiro, and they have started a working group to promote changes in their institution. So it's been really nice to inspire people to fight, because it's not easy, but it's been really nice. So just want to finish telling a little bit what we hope we'll be doing in the future. Every time we do a lot of plans, things change, but just an idea of what we hope it will happen. So I talk about intersections and mention race, but there are a lot of other factors we need to discuss when we are talking about motherhood. So we started here in Brazil to try to do some surveys and some studies regarding, first of all, parents of children with disabilities. Because when we are talking about the impact on the career of a scientist, if this scientist it's a parent of children with disability, things get a lot harder. And we do not have a lot of policies here in Brazil that consider that. And we do have some laws that guarantee the reduction of the working load and everything, but it's not enough. So we are trying to raise data on that, so we can try to propose some policies that will support more efficiently these parents of children with disability. Also, we need to talk about, especially when we're talking about legislation, we need to talk about sexuality and what it is to be a parent within the LGBTQI community, because even basic rights as the leaves here in Brazil. We have 6 months for moms and 20 days for fathers, and not that great, but still in a lot of cases, people from that community, they are not even able to get the leaves or any kind of basic right. So we are also trying to bring up this discussion, what it is to be a parenting within academia, but also being within the LGBTQ community. We are trying to raise awareness about harassment. So we are doing some workshops about fighting harassment and discrimination here in Brazil. We have done a survey here about the perception of biases against parents in academia. So we'll be published that really soon. So it's really important for us to bring all these intersections. It's not just about publication records. It's a lot deeper than that. We have a partnership with the UK, the Oxford Brookes University in UK. We were granted this grant from the British Council. So the idea is to build an equality plan here from the universities in Brazil based on the experience of the UK universities with the Athena Swan chapter they have in there. So it's been really interesting for us to have this partnership with them. Last year, we were awarded with the Nature Research Award for Inspiring Women in Science. So it was really a huge honor for us to have our cause recognized. And also, other than the recognition, it's a valid cause, we also got a really nice cash prize. So it was the first time we were able to do a lot of things because we had money to work with. So it's been really, really interesting for us. This last few months has been a lot of changes for us. I've talked about building networks. So with a lot of other initiatives here in Brazil, we started this Women in Science Fund. It's the Munasce Mulheres na Ciência in Portuguese. So Women in Science Fund. And we are raising money to fund projects, fellowships for women in science. So we just started, but it's been really nice so far to have all these groups coming together with a common goal. And I'm just going to finish telling that over these last 5 years, we have done a lot and we have achieved a lot, but we are pretty sure we have never done anything by ourselves. Our supporters and everyone that has followed us and opened some doors for us, they were really main players on all that we have done. So we have a lot of people to thank. We also need to talk about our sponsors that have always supported us during the years. The L'Oréal for Women in Science Fellowship here in Brazil, they are one of our sponsors. And the Serra Pereira Institute is the first and only private funding institute we have here in Brazil. So they have been our partners forever, and it's been really important for us. And I will leave you with our contacts. We are in all social media. You can find us, just put parenting science in there. We have our website and our email. And again, thanks for the invitation. Stop now.
Thank you so much. That is an incredible effort. I'm really, really inspired by everything that you've discussed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All the applause. Okay, so I think because we have a smaller group, what we might do is maybe we'll do 5 or 10 minutes of questions on the recorded Zoom, and then we'll stop the recording and then kind of have a more intimate discussion if you guys have any questions you want to ask sort of offline. So does anyone, I can get started, but does anyone have an initial question? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand. Get us started.
I'll get you started there, Anna. I'm just, so I'm probably a unique person in this group, which some of the group knows me already as being in a slightly different position, but I am connected to academia, but my position itself is not in academia. So I work for a company that works with a lot of the academic groups here that are joining today. And so have you done anything looking at careers that are non-academic and how you can influence those kinds of things related to, it's not going to be related to, tenure and things like that, but promotion and other things. I'm just wondering if you've given any thoughts. It seems like you've made a lot of connections into really just science in general in Brazil and how that could translate to other countries too.
Okay, so thanks, Maria. We have some partners here in Brazil. There are two main initiatives. They are working on mothers from other career, other sectors than academia. So we have here, it's Filhos no Currículo, it's children on the CV, it's a big initiative in here. And also the Maternidade nas Empresas, it's maternity on companies, or how, I'm not sure how to translate that. So there are really big initiatives here. They are working on, in a more general perspective of women, they're working on different sectors. So we are starting to work with them to try to generate data, what it is to be a scientist in other sectors than academia. But so far, we do not have any data on that. And we have not done a lot on that, especially because here in Brazil, when you look at the scientific career, we are talking about universities. It's really new for us to have scientists working on industry and everything. So when we look at publications, we are talking about federal universities here in Brazil, period. So it's something that we know it's important to discuss and to raise data, but it's not something we have done a lot. And we'll probably work with our partners to get some data on that and what it is to be a science outside academia. But so far, no, we have done a lot on that.
Thank you very much.
Paul, did you have a question or just applause?
That was supposed to be, was that me? Did you say?
Yeah. Did you have a question or just?
I do have a question. I wasn't sure which hand I put up. Hello, Fernanda. My name is Paul DeVita. Hello. And I'm familiar a little bit with a number of Brazilian biomechanists, including Maria Elizete Kunkel, who is the president of the Brazilian Society, as you mentioned. Are you able to work with her, and has she been able to work with your group to help promote women in science in Brazil? Do you have that connection?
We know her, but we have never done anything officially or in collaboration so far. No, not yet.
So biomechanics is pretty well developed in Brazil, and maybe through her and with Felipe, for example, helping.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can move along. I just suggest that.
Yeah. No, I know. And when we've delivered the letter for CNPq for the maternity on Lattes, Felipe was the president at the time of the Brazilian Society. So he signed the letter and everything. So we know we have the door open to talk with them and to have a partnership with them. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
We're very grateful Felipe was our connection to Fernanda, so that was great. And I kind of have a related question, maybe a little bit more broadly, but you've made so much change at so many different levels, like at the individual level, at the institutional levels, at the society levels, and maybe talking kind of broadly, because we have people from all over the world and so many International Society of Biomechanics, American Society of Biomechanics. But do you have a recommendation for something tangible that we can do as like a next step? It seems like the CV Lattes could be something that, our biomechanics societies could sign on to, but I'm curious to hear if you have a recommendation for us as biomechanics societies.
Yeah, usually what we recommend is that, well, the reality is they are different in everywhere. So the first thing we recommend to do is to understand what's the problem, if there is a problem, within your field. When we're talking about biomechanics, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of data about women in biomechanics, but do you have any data on mothers in biomechanics? So I think the first thing we need to do is to understand what's the problem when we're talking about moms, parents in general, but we live in a society where mom is responsible for caring and everything. So our movement is called the parenting science because we never thought that discussing parenthood should be a topic just for moms. But so far, we know moms are the ones that are being impacted. So do you have any data on that? So maybe the international society or even the national ones, they could try to understand what's the context, what are we talking about, what is the biggest issue? We are talking about women entering the system, women progressing within the system. Usually when we're talking about moms, the progression is kind of a huge problem. So do we have any grants to re-enter grants? So we have this pause in our careers, we have a little drop on productivity, that will mean we have less competitiveness. And so there are any grants offered by society to women that are returning from maternity leave. When we are talking about events, when we are organizing events, well, not everything is virtual, but eventually we will be back to in-person events. Do you offer any kind of childcare so moms could attend the event? Do you offer any kind of financial support? So if I have a small baby and I need to travel with him for the conference, is there any kind of support that I will have? So these things, of course, they are not things that will be done overnight, but it's not that hard. So generate the data to understand what's the biggest issue, and we're talking about your specific field. And the societies, they do have a huge part on changing it. So this is small actions, maybe just bringing up in the discussion, offering this kind of grants, thinking about when we're planning the conference, are we doing it in a hotel that have childcare? That's the basic. Do they have a breastfeeding room? Do they have a changing room? So these things that usually pass unnoticed, and they are not things that will make a huge budget impact or anything. So for the scientific societies, these things I think is be really attainable and a good starting point.
Incredibly helpful, thank you, and giving me lots of ideas of things we can talk to at our different societies. Does anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask on the public recording? Give you a second to think about it. Okay. Awesome. So, Fernanda, would you mind turning off the recording?
Oh, I'm the one.
Oh, sorry, Fernanda.
Fernanda was okay.